Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Marla Sofer, founder and CEO of Knomee and host of the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. Marla helps people truly understand themselves and their relationship with money. Marla, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
So excited to be here, Tony. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, no, glad you could join us. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and what brought you to the intersection of finance, behavior, and technology?
Origin story, I always start with being born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Child, one side of, or I guess both sides, first generation Americans that moved here and found themselves creating and achieving the American dream entrepreneurially and establishing themselves. I, in college, studied peace and conflict resolution and originally wanted to be a diplomat. And found myself later in, not that much later, but pivoting into finance. Got my MBA part-time while working full-time as a private banker at a small bank, and then got deep into investment operations at JP Morgan, understanding everything that goes into how is a fund actually created? Any type of institutional fund. What are the ingredients and operations that happen to make investments work? And covered asset managers at JP Morgan for 6 years, worked at BlackRock then for 5 years, overseeing relationships with key operational vendors, banks, index, and data. And for the last 10 years have been in fintech, very inspired by how do we make our industry better? How do we help financial services achieve goals of our clients, really meet our clients where they are, and not just be overwhelming, confusing, jargony products that they have no idea which are right for them and best for them. So, having worked in fintech for 10 years and recognizing that, wow, we've got so many tools. Tools aren't our problem. We can basically do what we want with technology and different financial products today. What our problem really was and still is data. We don't know our clients. We don't understand what matters to them. And until we do, we're not going to be able to meet them where they are and help them live better lives. We don't know what better lives means in each of their own individual context. So 2.5 years ago, brought me to where I am now as the founder of Knomee to solve that big problem. Deeply understand your clients, what good means to them, what they really want to achieve out of their life, how they define retirement, and then personalize the solutions and products and offerings that you have in your menu to give them what they need most.
I love it. And that's, been my message essentially is that we need to actually understand what our clients want and then give them that instead of the traditional, here's the product. Do you want it or not? And then we're surprised with 2 years later, they go, well, I bought this product and I don't really want it. I don't really understand it. So
Right.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and a huge part of the problem, clients don't know what they want. And even helping a client understand what they want and articulate what they want is a journey. And there is now so much research behind how do you help them do that? And so that's what we've embedded into the startup that I founded, Knomee.
Yeah, well, I think that really is the key is that we need to help, from my perspective, it's helping our clients ask the right questions because they don't even know what questions to ask. So, like you said, is you have to back up and help our clients go, okay, what are you actually trying to achieve? And yeah, I think that was the whole theory behind Know Your Client, but that never really went in the right direction. So,
Yeah, I
so
think
that's
so.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Knomee. What is Knomee?
Knomee is software. It is a software and a data platform. We have a offering that enables our wealth management clients to digitally engage and discover more from their clients. So, what clients see is a series of adventures. It feels like a wellness app. It feels a lot like a dating app or Duolingo or Strava. And as they go through the Nomi experience, also modeled after Noom lately, they are getting to know themselves. They are articulating what matters most to them. They're diving into questions they've often never asked themselves before about what brings them joy and how they envision their future. And so, bit by bit, Nomi gathers this information and collects it into what we call a financial identity. And that financial identity profile is constantly evolving and iterating as it learns more about the client and what they want out of themselves, their money, their relationships. And then on the other side of it is a very rich set of data and insights for advisors to better connect with those clients. So, a huge trick of it is that the data isn't shared without consent. It's not data scraped or gathered behind the back of the client. It is very much with the client suggesting to them, if you want me to help you more, I can help you get to know yourself, and then we can both be held accountable to what matters most to you. So it's all directly in front of their face. It's full transparency. Everything is opt in and consensual. And the advisors come away with AI derived insights that are built on this really rich set of verified data. So when I talk to one person, when I'm talking with Tony, I understand exactly what matters to Tony. And I've been surfaced through Nomi with three really deep, insightful conversation starters that bring together everything that Tony has shared. And they tell me, here's what Tony wants to hear from you. Here are the topics he cares about. This is how he wants to hear about them. Here's how they interweave with each other. Here's how his fears interact with his ambitions and his opportunities and the language of his motivators. So Nomi kind of takes a lot of the guesswork and behavioral psychology and PhD level academia, and we make it easy. We allow advisors to understand here is how to deepen the conversation. This is the words that matter. And then we give it to them very kind of spoon fed so that they are able to then deepen those conversations and relationships.
Well, that's really awesome. It reminds me of I think it's called Crystal that plugs into LinkedIn. Have you seen that? Where, if you're looking at somebody's profile, it tells you about them and what words to use and things like that.
No, but that sounds really cool. You're right. Very similar.
Yeah. So, so let's talk about behavioral finance for a minute. Obviously that's at the heart of what you're doing, but I think sometimes people out there don't know what behavioral finance is. So can you define what behavioral finance is?
Sure. I would say at its core, it's the study of decision making. It's very attuned to how and why humans make certain decisions, in some cases against their own interest. It is very focused on this is how our brains work. And this is how our brains and our emotions and our hearts are sometimes in conflict with each other, and how we sometimes make poor decisions because we have all of these different biases and predispositions that have now been studied at length. And so the body of that work around human decision making, I think, is often also called behavioral finance or BFI or financial psychology. A lot of it, as it relates to our money, is very hot topic right now. It's very exciting for wealth managers and bankers who understand that when they understand the science of our decision making and they understand the science of our motivators, then they can sell us more products. They can make more revenue. They can grow their businesses. So I would just categorize it as that, very the TLDR version. It's the science of decision making.
Cool.
Or
I
not.
like that. So, so that actually makes a lot of sense. And I think it's something that intuitively some of the top advisors have done for years, but not really known what they were doing is, I mean, not having a name for it. They knew what they were doing, but not having a name for it is, that you develop a relationship with the client so you understand where the client is coming from. And those are the advisors who were always, like, well, how do they do it? They have clients that are loyal to them. They have clients that are sending them referrals. They're the ones, in the insurance business going to the big conferences, and everything that I think there really is so much to this, and that this is what the financial services industry has been missing. And I know, I was a consultant for 30 years working with wealth management advisors, trust officers across the board. And, there was so often where a client would understand the mechanics or the logistics, but yet they would make an irrational decision. But it wasn't really irrational. And I think that's where Nomi gets to, is understanding, is it an irrational decision or not?
And what was driving it? I think that rational often we kind of define that as, well, it makes sense in some way. There is some sensible logic behind the decision. And what we might consider rational might or might not be apparent to us at the beginning. But the more we explore and the more we understand the rooting behind someone's decision making, the more it makes sense. And so, to your point, it becomes a little bit more understandable whether or not rational. It's true for decision making as much as it's true for non-decision making. And as they say, a decision to not do something is the same as a decision to do something. It's still a decision. But when you go deep into, well, where is this coming from? And you just continue to unpeel the onion. And when it comes to money, money is something that for generations and generations and generations, we've treated it in a sense of numbers and products and how we're going to give you allocations and returns and performance. But for every single person, and I've now done so many interviews, this is true for everyone, money is emotional. And when you talk about it in those terms of dollars and performance and products, you skip out on the fact that it's emotional for every single person. It is really just a construct in our brain of value. And if you don't understand how you are translating value in your own context to what you deem valuable, then you can often become a slave to other people's definition of money and other people's definition of value. And so I think what Nomi is trying to do for advisors and for the clients that advisors serve is get really crystal clear on, wait a second, this is your money. You earned it. You now have this opportunity to define value in your own context. And when that happens, the conversation changes. It moves from one about products and performance and dollars and cents to one of, for what? What are you going to actually use those dollars and performance and cents for? What is it that they're going to help you achieve in your life? And then the relationship entirely changes. It gets much deeper, much more personal, much more emotional, much more resilient and sticky. It becomes the type of client that wants to stay connected to you because you understand them at a much deeper level. And that's really what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that's awesome because, for me, that was always at the heart of, my work, is developing the relationship. And to develop the relationship, you actually have to get to know the person that you're working with. And I think, for so many people in financial services and just in the world in general, that's not a thing. They're not interested in knowing about the other person. But once you truly know your clients, yeah, they're not really clients anymore. Um, Gosh, there was something you said that I wanted to key on, and I lost that track, but hopefully we'll come back to it. So let's talk a little bit about what you're constructing. It's a holistic financial identity. Can you explain what is a holistic financial identity?
Sure. So it started off like this, and I was at Microsoft at the time, and I was learning a lot about tech and what is the power of tech, and the fact that as it relates to not to confuse behavioral science with behavioral data. Behavioral data is anything that is tracked through a behavior you've taken. So, a keystroke, or your eye movement on a screen, or driving your car somewhere. All of that data is being tracked somewhere by someone. It's actually getting
Mhm.
pretty commoditized. You can get that data somewhere. What I was aiming to solve for is if you think about what a financial identity is, it's just when you ask yourself the question, which financial product is right for me? There's only one answer ever for everyone around the globe. And the answer to that question is it depends. Your financial identity is basically a structured schema on which it depends. It depends on these pieces of information that are uniquely you. But when they come together, they make it crystal clear which financial products are right for you. Whether those are investment products, products, protection products, and insurance, all of those all of those questions, they have a right answer, but it's only Tony Stewart's right answer. It is not anyone else's answer. And so to know your answer, you have to aggregate all of these different dimensions into your financial identity so that that becomes your compass and it helps you understand what is your answer, Tony, to this question. So that's all a financial
Yeah.
identity is.
Well, that's pretty in depth. Because I think that's something that is missed is that, there's not one size fits all products. And even though clients may have the same data set, their goals may be different. You and I may have an identical income, identical net worth, but you may be dreaming of retiring in Europe, and I'm dreaming of retiring at home and not going anywhere. And so that creates a whole different thing, even though on paper you and I may be the same. And I think that is so important. It is scary, though, to think of all the data that is out there on us. So, um, but that's just modern life. So that's part of it. And I think just going back, I think the thing I was thinking of earlier is you mentioned rational, is that's also in the eye of the beholder. What is a rational decision? And I think that's probably part of where you're going with this too, is that we have to understand what's rational to that client, because that client may be looking at a set of facts and saying, okay, well, this is the rational decision for me, even though the advisor may be going, well, that's completely crazy. Um, you know,
Yeah, but at the end of the day, so I think the short answer is yes. The definition of rational is in the eye of the beholder. If you are being hired to help them as an outsourced proxy and you don't understand that beholder's perspective on what rational means to them, then you're not going to be able to help them because you're not able to meet them where they are and express whatever it is, what behavior change or what investment or what action you're getting them to take. You're not going to be able to communicate and connect with them in a way that makes sense to them. So it will sound to them that you're the one that's being irrational. And so I would say, yes, 100% it's in the eye of the beholder. But in a financial relationship between a provider and a client, there is one client, and sometimes we forget that in our industry. The client is the one that has hired you to offer them a product that helps them solve their problem. And so often we kind of flip roles, especially in wealth management and financial advice, where the investor is kind of telling the client, here's what we're going to do. In some cases, the client wants to hear that, but they want to hear it in their own context. And those are the strongest, best relationships when it's one where I understood you, I heard everything you said, I understand everyone has irrational, parts of them, your irrational fears and concerns and relationships with money. And with that context, here are some of the behaviors that I think we're going to push forward, and here's why. And they're still rooted in things that are important to you, client, not things that are important to me, because you're not here to serve me. I'm not the client. You're the client. And so if what's important to you is being able to, as you say, kind of just retire here at home, then let's get really clear on what retirement here at home looks like. And really in detail what is going to be the cash flow? What kind of legacy are you leaving? How much are you donating? How much are you spending? All of those things have to be rooted in for what? Like, what is the purpose of each of those things? And then I wanted to touch back really quickly, if you don't mind, on the topic of when you said, well, that's really scary. There's a lot of data out there. One of the key premises of Knomee is yes, there is a lot of data, and you have very little control over it. So if you know that you have an opportunity to construct your financial identity, Knomee is making a promise to you that nobody sees it without your permission. We are an antidote to the data that is flying around totally outside of your purview, outside of your ability to rein it in, control it, update it, manage it. We're basically saying that doesn't feel right. And the people that really need to know it in order to help you most are your financial providers, your wealth manager, your banker, your insurance agent, maybe your estate attorney, your CPA. Those people, the more they know you, the better your service gets. So it's in your interest to be known and to share that information. And if you move on from one to the next, you can turn it off. It's your information after all. And so that's really the promise we're making to create transparency, control, accountability, and agency for that end individual who gets much more value out of their data versus it just flying around out of their control.
Yeah, I love that is that it puts the client in the driver's seat. But I think, that we need to remember that too, as both advisors and for consumers, because my audience is split between the two, is that, it is the exchange of information, and better decision making requires more information. And that when you're limiting information, you're going to get eh, advice that may not be as accurate. Um, and so I think this is really important that you're doing this, and I think we should emphasize this, is that we do need to move somehow to where people can control their own data, or at least be aware of their own data. It's best if they can own it, but that's not realistic with the way some of the, I guess, technology companies have been built, is they've been built on building data profiles of people. So a quick question in terms of building the profile. So, there are companies that tell you your money personality type, is that also something that Nomi does, is create a personality type, say you're a leader of money or anything like that?
So I would just ask you back, what does that mean? You know,
Oh,
I
I don't
think that
know. I'm
there's
just
a lot
curious.
of tools out there. Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there that create archetypes or scores. And
That's what I was thinking of.
I would go back and challenge them and say, what does that mean? And so Nomi's approach is we're going to help you gather the information. In some cases, if it incentivizes you to go through the experience, you get an archetype. We've tested around with that a little bit. We think that most people are just motivated by understanding their own information and how they benchmark to other people. So, how many people kind of are like me? And if I'm okay, what are other people defining as okay? And why did this matter? Why did you have me exploring what brings me joy? And if I explain that to them, that's often enough incentive. They don't necessarily need the archetype and the score because it doesn't really have much meaning. But if I explain to them, here's why this matters, and here's why it's going to help you feel more agency over your money, then I think they feel a little bit more secure that there's a reason for the data. And it's not in order to squeeze you into one of seven archetypes or 10 archetypes or however many you think of. It is for the purpose of helping you make better choices and helping the people that help you make better choices because they're rooted and grounded in what matters to you and how you define that. So I feel like yes, what we compare with and our competitors out there in the market often have archetyping experiences or scoring experiences. There may be some level of scoring to the extent, but we're a very modular, we call them adventures driven, configurable platform. And so there is an adventure around confidence. So I am getting an assessment of how are you feeling about your money right now? Are you feeling good? If you even kind of imagine it, it's like on an emoji scale. So like between really happy and really nervous, how are you feeling about your money? And as that changes, I'm getting an assessment of your confidence and I'm learning about the context in which you answered that question. What was happening around you when you answered it that way? But I'm gathering your emotional relationship with money. I don't necessarily need to give you a label. This means you are a happy cat, whatever that
Yeah.
label is. Because tomorrow you might not be a happy cat. Tomorrow you might be, I'm like a nervous newt, you know, and I'm just making those up. But the archetypes are not, they're not pervasive. They're not dynamic. They are very point in time opportunities to kind of engage somebody, but then they lose meaning. And so to stay meaningful, you've got to gather multiple points in time and really create context that helps them create a better relationship with their money over time as they're going through transition. And that's what we help with.
I love that because, well, one thing you said is that we're not static. Things change. Our viewpoints may change from day to day as, as a client, as we take in new information or just even our mood or a new life event, gives us a new perspective. And that putting somebody into one of, let's say, 10 archetypes is limiting because that's only 10 for all the different people that are out there. So,
On that
that's not to
on
knock
10
some of these
days or
platforms.
10 moments in time, to your point. Yes.
Exactly. So not to knock any of the companies out there, but it's a different approach that serves a different purpose. So, that's awesome. So, Marla, let's get into what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. And these are three quick questions that I ask all of my guests to help them change the way they think about money. The first one is, what money myth are you trying to break?
That I'm defined by my money.
Ooh, I like that. I am not defined by my money. And I think you alluded to that earlier, is that money is just a construct. It's something that we ascribe to value, and that even through humanity, there have been different kinds of things that hold value.
Yeah.
Um, so let's get out the time machine now. What advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now about money?
Uh, Trust your gut, take more risk. Those are the two things that I would have, going back at several points in time. I knew what I wanted to do and I didn't do it. I kind of relied on other people, or was held back by other people or my perspective on how important other people's opinions were to my decision. And gosh, time and time again, had I just done it and taken that risk and gone with what I thought would have, panned out, it probably would have put me in a different position today. From big things to small things. I kind of in my heart, I think I'm a big risk taker. In my brain, I'm not. And sometimes I just wish I listened to my heart more.
Yeah, that's part of the financial identity. But I think, there's something really important here that I'd like to explore just for a second. And I think part of it too is confidence. And, as you said, is, what other people have to say, that I think sometimes we lack that confidence. So, do you have any thoughts on, how we can be confident, especially, there's a lot of women who listen to the podcast, how women especially can feel more confident, because I know that can be more of an issue for women.
I'll share my own personal story. And it's my real pivotal moment came when I internalized that I'm not here forever. There's only this one life. So if I'm not going to be confident in my choice, I might run out of time. And so for me, it was the decision to launch a company and become a founder and pursue this really, really big, hard, sticky, problematic, challenging idea, and sacrifice a lot of what my brain and my risk averse, less confident version of myself really did not want me to do. But I think finding the confidence was rooted in, wait a second, I do believe that there is some higher purpose and there is something that is driving me and motivating me. It's so core to my definition of meaning and making the most of my short time here on the planet that I will be really regretful and resentful if I don't take this confident step. And so it's kind of like having those two voices in your head and recognizing if you don't fight those fears and find your confidence, then you are sacrificing this core part of yourself that's going to consistently, struggle as a result.
I love that. And that really goes back to what you were saying about trust your gut, is it's having the confidence to trust your gut. I mean, because so often, we sort of know what the right answer is, but it's like you said, is somebody else may say it, or we may not believe in ourselves enough that, I mean, being a founder, that's a huge risk. Um, and it takes a lot of confidence. Takes a lot of confidence to start your own advisory firm, but you can do these things. So I love it. You have to believe in yourself. And that's awesome. So to wrap up, the last question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
If I was going to rewrite the question, if you would allow
That's
me,
okay. Go for it.
I
You're
would
the
say,
guest.
what's the tip to changing the way we feel about money instead of think about money?
Ooh.
And it goes back to your prior question. And I was thinking about, as you were kind of restating the answer, is in our industry, everyone who has anything to do with money, we have no lack of stories of failure, of mistakes, of debt, of people having these horrible situations come about as a result of thinking and
Mhm.
fear around money. And so I feel like that puts everyone in our industry at a slight bias to be more risk averse, more fearful,
Mhm.
more concerned, because we've seen the stories. We've been there. We've seen clients, we've seen our peers, we've seen news, we read the headlines. We care a lot about that. And it's because we're very dominated by our thinking. I think what our industry needs more than anything is what we feel about money. It goes back to that, all of my answers have kind of been around the feeling part. How do we make sure that we feel that our relationship with money is putting money in its place as a tool and
Mhm.
not allowing ourselves to be slaves to money, not allowing ourselves to be defined by it. And so I do wish that we changed the way that we feel about money by keeping how we think about money under some, under some tabs. Like we control how we think about the money and we allow how we feel about money to actually shine through.
Well, because our feelings about money do dictate so many of the financial decisions. But what I really like, I mean, I like everything you said, of course, but I really liked don't be defined by money. Is
Mhm.
so many people are defined by money. And so I think that is such important advice is, we get caught up in that is, we need to do this, we need to go on a fancier vacation, we need a nicer car because that's what all our friends have, and that's it gets back to knowing who you are. Know me. So it does come back to that. So I love what you're doing. So where can people learn more about what you're doing, connect with you, find out more about Knomee? And then last of all, is Knomee only available through advisors? Can consumers also access it?
Consumers should definitely be telling their advisors that they want no.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me. So right now we are distributing through wealth managers and advisors. We're kind of reaching out there in the market. When we started, we also had a consumer facing component of it. We'd like to get back there. But for now, we've kind of taken a brief reprieve while we focus on our business to business, SaaS based offering. The best place to learn more about it is at knomee.com. It's spelled Knomee. So there's no W. A lot of people like to throw in the W. No W, Knomee with two E's. We emphasized pronounceability. And on LinkedIn, you can look me up on LinkedIn, Marla Sofer. I'm active there. I'm very responsive there and would be delighted to answer any questions to any of your listeners, Tony, who are curious about what we're doing.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Marla. And for everyone watching and listening, as always, there will be links to the Knomee website and Marla's LinkedIn profile so you can get in touch with her and learn more about Knomee. So, Marla, thanks very much for taking time to share your insights today.
I'm delighted to. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, and thank you everyone as always for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think or feel about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also join the Get Ready movement on my website at tonystewart.com to receive updates about the podcast and free access to my toolkit of financial literacy resources. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.